Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, StarCitizen Live Game Director.
Hi, I'm Ian. I'm the art director for StarCitizen.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm the narrative director at StarCitizen.
So finally, we're saying goodbye to Stanton. It's quite precious to us. We've been talking about it. We've been looking at it. We've been living there for quite a long time. Now it's time to, move the conversation on, start to look at something new. Mm-hmm. Now it's changed slightly, the jump point side, from what we saw a little while ago. One of the things that was quite important for Chris is he wanted that feeling of something that was quite wondrous, something that was quite amazing. It's not dark, it's not mysterious, it's not hostile, but it's more, like I said, wondrous.
So when we started looking at PYRO, and we had to start looking at how the jump points work when we're traveling from Stanton to PYRO or PYRO to Stanton, and thinking about border security, the infrastructure that's needed there. What's the lore? Just because on one side it's very lawless versus the other side is dealing with the UEE. So we needed to go through and really think about how this was working, and then also with the jump points, how smugglers would work with the secondary and tertiary routes that would lead into the main jump point and then funnel out.
Yeah, we kind of call it, internally, we kind of call it the Swiss cheese approach. Mm-hmm. Of the, there's sort of the main entrance that you would go through on Stanton, which would be this sort of guarded, have the infrastructure that you had mentioned, the security and stuff like that, but the possibility that there would be alternate ways to kind of get in to bypass that, so which would be beneficial knowledge for smugglers or criminals who are trying to get in under the radar. Yeah. And also it was if there's a lot of infrastructure around it, it sort of created this impression that that infrastructure was responsible for the jump point. When in reality, it's a naturally occurring thing. An interesting balance of make it seem like this is a checkpoint, but at the same time it's something that the ships are creating, not the structures.
So before we go too much further into the PYRO system, let's take a deep dive into the art process with Jake Dunlap, and he's going to be taking us through the authoring process for the Stanton and PYRO jump points.
Bringing jump points to the verse has been an interesting journey as we've been designing a new element in our game. We've put a lot of time into creating two solid examples of different types of jump points you'll eventually see all around the verse, one in Stanton and one in PYRO. We've been continuing to use Houdini as the tool to create these gas clouds. The setup we have for them is a parent gas cloud and a child gas cloud. The parent is mainly used as an establishing shot when you arrive in your ship from quantum travel, while the child is used as the main gameplay environment and is placed inside the parent. The child also has a reasonable scale, which keeps your average ship speed in mind. These things aren't nearly the size of real nebula, if you're curious. But by no means are the jump points small. Here's an example of a PYRO jump point next to Microtech. To explain the process a bit more, we create the parent at a large scale, then cut out a small box in the center of it. Inside the small box, we'll gather the volume data from the parent, up-res that, and then add details. The details will be different depending on what type of gas cloud you want and if you want to easily fly through it or not. We usually spend time investigating different designs for the gas clouds, but with the Stanton jump point, the work had already been started and used in the 2019 CitizenCon demo. We just had to go through, clean up the Houdini file and get it game ready with a couple of extra tweaks along the way. Some of the tweaks we made to the parent were making it feel like more of a structurally sound rotating disk. This was to make it feel like a safe and well-used jump point. The child gas cloud here was changed more dramatically. It used to have a bunch of dark clouds around it. We felt that it was feeling a little bit too closed in, so we spent time morphing the magnetic lines in the center to create a really interesting horizontal, flowing, relaxing composition to visually show you that Stanton itself is generally a safe place at first glance. The parent gas cloud for PYRO was created with the same process as the Stanton parent, but we changed the shape of the cloud into something more menacing and violent. We wanted the reveal of PYRO to be a clear warning of what you should be expecting throughout the entire system. So we made it very closed in, dense, and very active. We did make it a small challenge to traverse the child, something that won't take too long but should be something to consider when traveling through. Something that helped really quickly create a fun traversal route was creating a white box play area in engine out of solid geometry and flying around it right away. After we were happy with the route, we exported the geometry to use in Houdini, where we converted it to a volume and combined it with the upresed area of the parent to export that out as the child cloud. We wanted to make sure that these systems feel very different from each other. Some ways in which we did this was by the shape of the jump points. As I had mentioned before, Stanton feels very clean, put together, and generally safe with the disc-like form that it has, but PYRO feels like it's more violent, distressed, and this shows in its form. The comparison is shown well in both of the child clouds. In the Stanton child cloud, we have nice long strands of the magnetic waves that encapsulate the jump point that feel harmonious, beautiful, and free, whereas in the PYRO cloud, it shows almost the opposite. The walls feel like they're closing in on you, moving in unpredictable ways, completely unstable. Your ship could enter into a wall and disappear within a second. Lighting also plays a big role in how we feel about these spaces. You can see these are dramatically different areas in the mood and tone, and lighting is the key to that. So that's a brief look at jump points. They've evolved quite a bit since last time you saw them. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Jake. So one of the things that players will first probably come across when they come into the PYRO system is the space station. You know, it was discovered a long time ago. It was sort of deemed uninhabitable because it was just too dangerous with that variable flare star going on. So they kind of utilized the system for resources, and then when they kind of tapped out, they just sort of left, and that's when all the sort of squatters came in. So there's sort of older infrastructure built to sustain kind of the mining activities and the gas harvesting and stuff like that, but you know, they just basically left, and then other populations started to slowly move into the system, criminals, squatters, survivors, and whatever, and start to kind of take over what was left behind.
Which gives us some unique gameplay comparatively to Stanton and the space stations there. So with PYRO, since they're in such disrepair, some of them are inhabited, some of them are completely abandoned, and then so players can go and explore. They can go and see what's happened there, whether it's been hit by an asteroid, or if it's there was some sort of conflict there before. But you'll be able to go and explore the different decks and be able to go and meet new people, meet the frontier lifestyle, enjoy it.
Okay, so before we go to the inside of the stations, we're going to jump now to Eric, and he's going to go in a bit more detail, the concept development process taken when looking at the exteriors.
Hi, I'm Eric Gagnon, Principal Concept Artist on StarCitizen. The goal of that initial step of sketch development is to create something not invited, dangerous, damaged by asteroids, and surrounded by floating debris. Hiding place for outlaw, looks old, decrepit. Lawless, no security force here, approach at your own risk. Industrial look, messy, but not abandoned. Some parts are wrecked, but under repair and raw looking. I like to use the black and white sketches to start. It allows us to go very quickly and focus on the shape only. We then try to play with a touch of color to define more of the commercial port platform. We try different schemes to remind us of the whole look with a rusty vibe and brown tones. Adding a touch of light and some context around the sketch allows to see the scale of things and properly view the silhouette. We expand on the idea to play with the mechanism and functionality. This is the color sketches of the asteroid Hunter harpoon and at different angles. In this sketch, we can clearly feel the arrival of the asteroids and the dismantling or destruction zone. We also need some top angles to properly showcase the size and scale of it. With all those elements in place, we can now build a nice plate of the entire concept for the asteroids harpoon with all the pieces together. The Shantytown module habitation is a nice idea to add a kind of small city on the outskirts of the space station. So here I sketched those shapes to create something very modular. From the grayscale, it's pretty easy to do a color pass. I played with a color palette that reflects the vibe of Shantytown. In this sketch, here we can easily see how cool the area is going to be. Another angle shot here is pretty nice too. Playing with warm and cold color contrast is interesting. All those different angles help define and expose the different elements of the concept to properly illustrate it. Now we have a nice board of this sketch phase. We apply the same process here for the commercial port platform. The black and white sketches are a good way to go. In this image, we see the silhouette shape sketches for the front of the port platform structure. A quick side view plan here is necessary to well build this design. We fill the form and the ratio and the size of what we want to achieve. And of course, we create a color sketch to see what it could be. We see the industrial look and some potential details to better define and deep dive into. For those, we have a deeper design exploration of this industrial area. Pipes, tanks, angular shapes, and a color touch. Combining 2D and 3D sketches really help properly communicate the design intent. It's a common technique now, but it's really efficient to highlight areas of the concept. Using 3D is also very useful for level designers to validate the size and shape of things when creating the environment in-game. Let's talk about the big repair machinery idea. This machine could be used to repair surfaces damaged by asteroids, inspired from the heavy machinery that we see in mining. Nice to see the overall add-on ideas brought together on a single board. It gives a great look and makes you want to see the next design step. The mood looks. We also create a mood board from our different shots. This shows how lighting is used to set the tone of the environment by giving different options and color palettes. Finally, we provide some options for paint of the exterior surfaces. We work from a list of brands and factions that we need to incorporate to the design. We started from the narrative things, worked to build the visual identity of the different brands, exploring different ways to represent them in the environment, stickers, flat surfaces, graffiti, or official paint job. This really brings the sketches alive and set in the universe of Star Citizen. The Outlaw Station are a staple of the PYRO system, and we hope this first exterior concept phase excites you as much as we had fun to create it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Looks great.
That's the exterior. So right now we're going to go from the outside and we're going to jump to the interior. Before we really started exploring anything, one of the core concepts that was discussing as a group was the idea of power and the idea of heat. Now, we've got like this big interior layout of this, maybe this old mining station. How would they have adapted the space? You know, they would have, right, okay, we need power here. Okay, that will create heat. So we started thinking about, okay, where would the heat lamps be? And then where would light come from? So just the principal concept of power, creating heat, creating light, that was pretty much the core of the start of the visual development process.
So when we started talking about it from a design side, we needed to make sure that we were covering certain shops, just basic needs for the player. Everything's bare bones. It could be that it used to be a clothing store, now it's a food shop, and so they've converted it. The gang's moved in. You know, it's not what it used to be, and but you see that old skeleton there.
One of the things that definitely we've been talking about with PYRO that we didn't really get to see in Stanton is the idea of the sort of the gang presence. So, you know, that idea that they're the sort of local law in the area. So, you know, you might see gang members coming and shaking down some of these shopkeepers for protection money or rent, you know, type thing.
Or even shaking down the player.
Yeah, which would be very fun. not for me, but.
So when we started to explore some of the side areas, there were other factors that we had to cover. Habitation, clinics, you know, players need a place to sleep, to log out, as well as players need a way to get themselves healed. And then we started taking the same treatment or similar treatment that we were doing with the main market area and started to take it into the hubs and how they were possibly repurposed, or the clinics and how those were possibly repurposed. So, and just make sure that everything felt cohesive in its raw, natural form. In the way that we have the station structured, we haven't let players go into like living quarters of where the people that lived at the station would be, or even into the lower decks where the power, where the gravity generators are. And this is where we're going to start introducing these areas, and it opens up new opportunities for the players to go explore and do new things. But it's also areas that the gang might want to protect.
Yeah, it offers a lot of possibilities for mission content, you know, whether it's actually maybe working for the gang itself or other kind of little small things you could do inside there to really kind of, drive you deep into the bowels of this thing.
Okay, so that's a little look at the insides of the stations, but now we'll jump to Christian, and Christian's going to take us on a little bit of a deeper dive into the concept development process of the inside of the stations.